So next we're gonna start drawing or painting our ink wash. So just like we're gonna go over some things that you need. So you need your drawing paper with their 1.5 inch grid. You need your printout of your apple for reference, and also go ahead and draw your apple on your paper. I got some paper towels, a cup of water, our palette, a paintbrush, and our ink. Now your ink should be in a little cup. If it's not in a cup, let me know. I'm gonna try to get you one. It should be in a little cup in your box. Alright, so we're gonna get our ink out of our little cup. You can pour it in your palette in one of the little sections. You don't need a whole lot. It goes a long way. So I did a little bit. So we have that. Our ink. So we're gonna go like we did when we did a value scale. What I'm gonna do this time, just to make sure I don't get mixed up a lot, I'm gonna go with the opposite of our black, all the way completely opposite, and just put some water in this section. I'm gonna keep going, fill up all these little sections. So I went opposite. So I'm gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna have 5 full of water. What I'm gonna do, just pour a little bit. Make this a little bit faster. You have to be careful, like I just did. I poured some of it. Alright, so what we're going to do first, we're going to set our paper aside, our drawing paper, and we're just going to worry about our palette for a second. And I want you to find a scrap piece of paper. It can be computer paper or anything you have lying around. So we're gonna kind of make what we did with our value scale. We're gonna make a mini version of it, just where we can have different values to kind of help us through our drawing. So we already have our darkest, which is just black, which should just be straight out of your little cup. So we're going to kind of make what we did to begin with, going from dark to the opposite of light. So this will help us when we're starting painting or drawing with our ink. So I'm going to start on the opposite end. Just put a tab a little bit. Like I said before, when it's in your palette, I just added a tiny bit of that, but it looks straight black. But when we draw it on paper, of course it's not nearly that black. So for me, that could be a little bit too dark for my lightest part of a drawing. So I might want to just go ahead and make another one to the side. And so for the lightest part, again, I'm just going to put my very tip of my paintbrush in my ink, where it's barely in the ink, and then swirl it around in my water. Let me see what we got. So like I said before, it also as it dries, it gets lighter. So I'm okay with this being my lightest light. So then again, I just barely touch my paintbrush on the very tip, not the whole thing. So I'm gonna go to the next. I'm gonna leave that like it was. That's probably half a paintbrush into the ink with my water. Now you also have to think about how much water you have in your little section. If you have a lot of water, it makes a difference. If you have a little bit of water, so just think about that. So just play around with it until you get a light gray. This is very light. This is still light. When you keep going around our little wheel, get too much water. Alright, so that's darker than this one. So we're going from 1, number 2, number 3. So we're going from light. We start with light, a little bit darker still. So I'm good with these 3. And you go to the next. So every time, what I like to do for some reason is to clean my brush, make sure it's nice and clean. And that will help you better judge when I tell you a full paintbrush, maybe half a paintbrush to put in there. So this was probably a little bit more than half of a paintbrush inside the ink to get this gray. So I'm going to go to this one. So I'm putting a little bit more. Just dab it in there, swirl it around. Cannot say that word. And then we're going to test it. So this one's pretty similar, so I'm going to add a little bit more black. That time I just barely touched the tip. It's always better to add. Once you put it in there, it's hard to add enough water to make a difference. So better be a little bit at a time. Then go from there. For me, that's a little bit similar to this one. So I'm going to add just a tiny bit, just barely touching the tip in there. Maybe a little bit more. Swirl it around. Still about the same. Gonna add another paintbrush. See what we get. Maybe another little bit more. Make it a little bit darker. Alright, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. And if you want to, you can do 5 and 6. You don't have to. So that time I put the whole paintbrush in there and just dip it in my water. Alright, so that looks a good bit darker, but as I said, as it dries, it's going to get a little bit lighter when it dries. Alright, so lastly we're going to go to the next one. Now, like I said, originally I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then this was my dark straight black ink. I had to make this one because I made this too dark. This one over here. So if you did this one light enough the first time, you don't have to have this one. So you might just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6 and then this, so that'd be 7 altogether. But if you just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then your black would be number 6. It's fine too. Alright, so we got the last one. For me, I'm just gonna put my whole paintbrush in there. I clean my paintbrush to begin with in my water. I'm going to do 2 whole paintbrushes. I might do another one. Maybe one more, just to have the really dark gray, almost black, but not quite. And then we have like the original, it's just pure black. Alright, so we have on mine, like I said, this gives you, I wouldn't go all the way around because you wouldn't know where to start, because to me they all look pretty black, but as you can see as I use them on my paper, they're very different. So this one was this one, very light gray, then went from this to this all the way around to the dark, which is just pure black. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's a lot. You might just have 5 or 6, whatever. I wouldn't go all the way around. It gets too complicated, and plus you need some to know where the lightest starts and the dark start. So that's part 1.